This is part 2 of the New World, New Money series. If you don't understand the difference between money and currency, or the structural difficulties in the financial system, please watch part 1 before watching this. If you understand these concepts, this video will be about the alternatives to fiat money, what they are, how to use them, and their drawbacks, if they have any. With all that said, this information will help you position yourself to be safe and benefit from the coming financial transition. With all that said, let's begin. In the last video, I walked through why money was created, at the time it was created. Money is still a store of value, but modern money has a number of additional requirements it needs to fulfill. Fiat money has been able to fulfill these, while confidence has remained in it. Any alternative needs to be able to fulfill these same requirements and be structurally sound. Ultimately, the value of money is derived by the utility of the things it can buy. If money cannot buy something, it is effectively just an object. This is why people use things of scarcity as money, because it limits the supply and thus maintains the value of the money. This is the main difference between real and fiat money. Fiat money is based on belief. This means there's no limit on its quantity, which usually leads to price, or rather value, fluctuations, which is not a very good store of value. Real money, on the other hand, is tied to physical objects, which do not change in quantity very rapidly. This means it is a much more effective store of value, which is why it is real. However, due to real money's connection with physical objects, it is difficult to exchange. This is why currency was created. Currency is a pass-through between value, money, and currency. This effectively means the currency has value, when in reality the currency itself does not. It is this currency portion that has had the largest demands placed on it, mainly from the digitalization of the financial system. It used to be transactions were relatively slow. One person had currency and they traded it physically for the things they needed. But now there's innumerable ways you can move currency extremely quickly. Here are a few examples. High-frequency traders, which are usually computer programs built off certain algorithms to buy or sell financial assets over a very short time frame, usually 5 to 30 milliseconds. And for context, a millisecond is 1,000th of a second. According to New York Stock Exchange, there is 38.8 million contracts traded per day in 2022. At 100 shares per contract, that's 3.83 billion shares. According to the NASDAQ, there's an average trading volume of over 5 billion shares per day. And lastly, according to Capital One, there's an average of 22,950 credit card transactions per second for the entire world. I think that was 2023. So all this means there's a tremendous amount of transactions per second in currency, and any alternative needs to be able to match those transactions while being backed by real money, being secure, and available everywhere. So what alternatives fulfill these requirements? Well, me and many humans throughout history have pondered this, and there's really only two options: precious metals and cryptocurrency. Let me show you why. Starting with precious metals, what are they? Well, precious metals are defined as any metal that doesn't deteriorate or doesn't like to bind to other things. So it doesn't oxidize, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't disappear. So if you look at the periodic table, you'll see gold, silver, palladium, platinum, osmium, and a few others. These metals are known as noble metals because they last thousands of years. If you take like a copper coin and a gold coin and you bury them in the ground and come back 100 years later, there might be a shell of the copper coin left and the gold will be basically intact. Remember, stored value needs to last a long time. So precious metals have been one of the few objects in humanity's history that have been able to last the time required, and far longer actually. So moving on to this, let's start with silver. Starting with silver, humanity produces about 1 billion troy ounces every year. and collectively over all of human history we have produced about 30 billion trillion ounces of silver. The few silver researchers that do exist estimate that about 90% of that silver is currently unavailable, so it's been in landfills or it's in other products that are just irrecoverable, at least at current price levels. This means there's about 3 billion ounces of above ground silver. The Silver Institute, which provided the 1 billion number and the deficit of 200 million ounces, which I'll get to in a moment, is a banking institution. So the numbers there have been massaged to the downside to keep silver undervalued, which I'll talk about later. So keep in mind that we probably make less than this or use more. On the silver deficit though, so they say we use about 200 million ounces a year more than we produce. But silver alone is using 3 to 500 million, not silver, solar panels alone are using 3 to 500 million ounces a year. And add on electric cars and all the other stuff humanity does, it's probably closer to 600 or 700 million ounces a year. Troy ounces. So moving to gold, how much gold is mined each year? Well, the World Gold Council says that about 75 to 83.5 million ounces of gold is mined every year. So that's about less than like a 12th of what silver is. But how much gold is in the world? Well, it's estimated that there's been about 7 to 8 billion ounces of mined gold in human history, and most of that gold is still with us today. You may notice, even with these official numbers, that there's about 2 to 3 times more gold than there is silver. And not to mention, there's probably more gold than they say. So that number I just went off of is off of 244,000 tons of gold, which is a medium estimate of how much gold's ever been mined. But looking at places like China, which have been importing 6,000 to 8,000 tons of gold every year for the past 40 plus years, or the secret like gold in the Philippines that the Japanese collected, so billions of ounces there, and the Colorado River has billions of ounces of placer gold, or Chocolate Mountain, or the mines in South Africa with tens of billions of ounces, or Eastern Russia. There's just gold all over this planet. This leads me to believe there might be dozens of times more gold than silver. And you may notice something interesting, that gold is currently worth a lot more than silver, when above ground supplies should make it so that silver is worth more than gold. Well, looking to the silver-gold ratio, the silver-gold ratio is a ratio between how many ounces of value of silver equals 1 ounce of gold. So over most of human history, that 5,000-year average was about 1 to 15, where 1 ounce of gold equals 15 ounces of silver. And that's going off of 1.5 million tons of silver, about 30 billion ounces, and 177,000 tons of gold. So a little less than the official estimates. Far less if there's more gold than there really should be. But current mining ratios put the amount of mined gold and mined silver at about 1 to 12, or produced silver to produce gold. But in reality, not all that produced silver is mined, so it's more like 1 to 7 or 8, meaning 1 ounce of silver, or 1 ounce of gold is equal to 7 to 8 ounces of silver. But then if you look at, again, the above ground stockpiles, there's multiple times more gold than there is silver, so I think, at least for a short while, that ratio will be inverted, where there's 1 ounce of silver is worth more than 1 ounce of gold. But quickly, since silver is more abundant in the crust, that'll come back down. So I've established how much gold and silver there are, but why did humanity choose them? Well, gold and silver are very value dense. So for most people in most transactions, you can get away with having a small amount of a precious metal and getting a lot of stuff. Not to mention gold and silver are metals, meaning they are divisible, somewhat speaking. So you can have a COMEX bar, which is 1,000 ounces, or you can have a 1 ounce coin or a fraction of an ounce coin. It's very variable. However, it's not as variable as other currencies, which I'll get to later. So going into the different kinds, like things you need to know about investing in precious metals. Well, I already kind of said this, but the difference between ounces and troy ounces. So ounces is the unit of weight or liquid, but troy ounces are about 10% heavier than normal ounces. So the exchanges and all the coin dealers and anywhere you buy, say ounces, they really mean troy ounces, unless they're trying to trick you, but that's the whole thing. It's usually troy ounces. And everything you need to know is the different kinds and sizes of precious metals. So there's rounds, which are usually coins, so they stamp the coin onto a round that are pre-made, or there's bars, or there's junk silver, which I'll get to in a minute, or scrap silver, or all these other different things. But the main distinction is coins and bars. Another distinction is purity. So how pure is the silver? So bullion is 99.999% pure. This is what is used in all the manufacturing as a conductor of electricity and in all these other things, or solar panels. Junk silver, or 90% pure silver, or sterling silver, which is 92.5% pure silver, has an additive of usually lead or tin or another metal to make it harder and that for jewelry, but it isn't a pure conductor anymore, and thus they're worth less. So you can buy either. So like pre-65 coinage in the United States is partially silver, but I would recommend getting bullion silver. Another thing you need to note is authenticity. Unfortunately, due to their value, there's a lot of fakes. So as a rule of thumb, the smaller the object, the less likely it is to be fake. So what some people will do is they'll take 1,000-ounce Comex bars or big ounces of silver, and they'll pour them and put a big lead thing in the middle. And if you drill in just like a little bit, it looks like it's all silver. It's 1,000 ounces, but in reality, it's a big hunk of lead, so it might be half worthless. But if you got into the size of a coin and they try to do that, they'd be getting like a fraction of the cost out of the silver, and it's probably more expensive at that point to do that whole process. Not to mention there's tests to easily see if it's fake. So there's not a whole lot of faked silver in small amounts. Gold, on the other hand, since it's so valuable, there is. So something that a lot of people fall for out of China is they take tungsten coins that look exactly like gold eagles or maple leaves or whatever mint you choose, and then they electroplate it with gold, so it looks like gold because it is gold, but then it's just tungsten. So they'll sell them for $50, and people are like, it's such a good deal, but it's not real gold. They're not that stupid. In fact, gold's actually more valuable in China because of the arbitrage market, so they'd never actually bring it over to the United States. So the key to getting non-fake precious metals is going through a real source. So a vetted dealer online, or a coin shop, or a jeweler. If you buy stuff on eBay, you run the risk of getting fake stuff. But if you buy it from another stacker that bought it from a real source, you can be reasonably confident it is real. And there are tools to test gold and silver if they're purity, but they're usually thousands of dollars, so they're only owned by coin shops. So just go to a reputable dealer, which I'll talk about in a moment. So how is the price of gold and silver and all other precious metals determined? Well, unlike a real market, which is I exchange something for a real object, it's on the futures and options market, known as the COMEX, out of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. The COMEX is a banking tool created by the big banks to manipulate gold and silver nearly exclusively. There's no real silver or gold on the COMEX. They may say they have a few million ounces in the stash in warehouses, but it never actually leaves the warehouses. The COMEX is a futures market, which means they bet in the price. The price will go up or down in the future. And fortuitously, the COMEX market can only bet the price of silver will go down, because if the price goes up, interest goes up, and they lose their control over the system, because gold and silver is like kryptonite to the banking cabal. Let's see, it's interesting actually if you look at the trading volumes on the COMEX between the different big banks or their custodian accounts. They usually trade well over 500 million ounces a day, when only 1 billion ounces are produced every year. And they do that every single day, and then they take delivery of those quotation marks at the end of each month, way more than is produced. So it's this hot potato game of cycling it around and pushing the price down. They manipulate silver far more than they manipulate gold, but both are very well controlled, and ultimately the price is just digitally set. There's no real market that determines the price. It is changing, however, as people wake up to gold and silver's true value. In India, they opened a new silver exchange, which doesn't let any big banks do futures and options on it. And China understands. They've been buying gold for the past 40 years, as they said. And they have a market over there, which is trading silver and gold above what we're paying in the West to incentivize it to move into China. So all the big players know the real value, but they just keep it down to keep the population distracted. So where do you buy precious metals? Well, you can go to a few places. You can go in person, so to a pawn shop or a coin shop or a jeweler. You can go online like eBay or Craigslist or whatever, but they won't be as secure. You can go online to physical dealers, which usually have sales tax and other things involved, but you can still get it. Or you can go to, my personal opinion, the best way to get silver, Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin is a company based out of Michigan, which is the only state to seriously regulate gold and silver. They've done something like $8 billion in sales since 1995, and the CEO, Andy Sheckman, has done a number of interviews going over the value of gold and silver, how their business works, and why everyone should invest in it. I'll put some links in the description if you're interested in buying or reaching out to him. Don't bother them if you're not buying any more, like a significant amount of silver, like more than a few ounces, because he usually picks up the phone for everyone. So if you're only getting an ounce of silver and he makes like $1, it's just not worth 20 or 30 minutes of his time. But if you need lots of silver and gold, like relatively speaking, so a few dozen, a few hundred ounces, or a few thousand ounces even, he's the guy to go to. He'll ship it out to you. He'll give you a list of all the prices, and in my opinion, they have some of the best prices for gold and silver that you'll see anywhere. I forgot to say this earlier. On things you need to know about gold and silver, but while we're on dealers, there's a spot price which is determined on the COMEX, as I said. All right, now it's about $31 an ounce for silver and like $2,500 for gold. I don't check gold as much. And then there's a premium. So while it costs the mines like $19 to mine the ounce, and then some more to refine it and whatnot, it costs a few dollars to actually stamp it into a nice coin or a bar. As a rule of thumb, coins are a little more expensive than bars because bars are simpler. But I would actually recommend getting coins for tradability and niceness. It's only like half a dollar difference to $1 difference. It depends, of course. Premiums usually range from if you get bulk and you get bars or COMEX bars or whatever, like the ugly 1,000-ounce bars, might be $1.50, $2 per ounce. But then if you get coins, it can be $3 to $4 an ounce over the spot price. And then if you get silver eagles when the mint isn't making them, it might be $10 over. I wouldn't recommend going that far, either wait, but we're getting so close to the point where you won't be able to get it. I'd say just go somewhere else. Depending on the amount you need and how much you're willing to spend, I think buying the coins is a better option. But you can also get like pre-65 coinage and all these other things. Anyway, I bring all this up because Miles Franklin has some of the lowest premiums because of their operations pretty streamlined of anyone, like 50 cents below what you might find. It may not seem like a lot, but it adds up over dozens or hundreds of ounces. So the next thing is, how do you buy the gold and silver? So you can buy it with cash, and that's untraceable, which is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. You can go to, if you do it online, you can use a check or a bank transfer or a PayPal or whatever. But a lot of people, especially in this economy, don't have a lot of cash laying around. So something you can do is buy it through a retirement account. So there's some legal hoops you have to go through, and you have to have a specialized person set it up. But basically, you can, provided you pay the tax when you withdraw the money to buy the silver and whatnot, and it's still owned by the account, you can buy gold and silver with, or any precious metals, with money in a retirement account. Don't just do it, though. You have to double check, and your area might be different. And something you definitely should not do is, they'll try to trick you and say you have to buy it and have someone else hold it. So there's like custodians, like basically bank vaults that hold gold and silver for people. But I 100% guarantee you, as soon as it's actually worth an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver and the fiat systems collapse, they'll just steal everything. That's what they did in 1933 when they confiscated gold. So never, ever, 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 ever let someone hold your gold and silver, because they'll just take it. So that's a good option if you want to explore it. If you have a few hundred, $2,000 and you want to get a little bit of silver, remember, there's only like half an ounce of silver per person for the world, and maybe like 3 to 5 ounces of gold per person in the world. So if you have that, you've got like your fair share. And if you have more than that, then you'll do really well when the new system comes around. So look into that if you want to get some gold and silver. And one last thing, I guess, if you have, after seeing this and seeing how much more attractive silver is, if you have gold, you can always exchange your gold for silver. So like Miles Franklin and a few other companies have an exchange program for a slight like percentage fee, like maybe 1 or 2%, where they say, okay, you have 80 ounces of silver, I'll give you 1 ounce of gold, or vice versa. And because of the gold and silver ratio is so messed up, it's currently like 1 ounce of gold is worth like 80 ounces of silver. I forgot to say that earlier, where it should be reversed. If you have gold, I would strongly advise swapping it for silver. Let them equalize out, and then maybe swap some back, because gold will, like the amount of silver supply will increase quickly once the price is high. Oh yeah, one last thing to consider. Depending where you buy your silver, so each state, at least in the United States, you may or may not have to pay sales tax, which is technically illegal because in the Constitution it says it's real money, but what do I know? Paying sales tax like 7.5% on thousands of dollars of precious metals is just really a scam. So if you can buy it in a state that doesn't do that, or through a state that doesn't do that. One of the last things I want to go over is how to sell gold and silver. and other precious metals. Now, I will never be selling my gold and silver. Gold and silver should be worth an ounce of gold and silver, and you can trade them for things you need, not worth $25, $30, or $2,500. But if you do need to sell your gold and silver, there's a few ways you can do it. If it's a lot of gold and silver, you can sell it to a big company like Miles Franklin. They'll do the transaction for you. There's little verification and stuff involved, of course, but that's somewhat easy to do. If it's small amounts, you could sell it online or the pawn shops or whatnot. And a time will come when the demand for silver and gold is so high on the dying days, if you really need fiat, you'll be able to sell it easily. Remember, selling gold and silver is not a matter of like if, it's just how low are you willing to go. Getting a spot price may take a little effort, but if you're willing to say, okay, I'll lose 1 or 2%, you'll just sell it instantly. So if you've made 50% on your silver, like you bought it, years and years ago, and you just want to sell it quickly for cash, it's not difficult to just sell slightly below what other people are willing to sell it for. It's up to you, of course. But again, I would strongly advise don't ever sell your gold and silver until it's worth an ounce of gold and silver. Exchange it for things you need at that point. That's when it will be really valuable, like, a few dozen ounces of silver might be worth a house, or whatnot. All right, the last thing for precious metals is any accounting you have to do and reporting and whatnot. So while the current system exists, you do need to pay taxes on your gold and silver if you sell them, which is another reason not to sell them. So first of all, you need to keep track of, like, just for you, I'd recommend, when you buy your silver, even if you pay cash for it, like, what was the spot price? What did you pay on the premium? That way, if you go to sell it, you could say, okay, I'm getting the premium back, plus I'm getting this extra, or taking a loss, or making a profit, whatever. If you hold it for under a year and you make money, you're supposed to add it on your income tax, on your, let me pull it up here. I have the form, on your Schedule D of your 1040 form. And there's also an extra form if you have over $1,000 in junk silver, or more than 25 various gold coins like Maple Leaves and Kruger's, a few others. Luckily, American Gold Eagles don't count, and that's a oh, I didn't put the form here. I think it's like a Form B or something. It's a separate tax form you have to fill out. It's extra work. If you hold it for more than a year, you have to pay capital gains tax on your precious metals. So it's your marginal rate up to 28%. So take that information what you will if you need to sell silver and gold. Anyway, so that's, oh yeah, the last for real this time is the drawbacks of precious metals. So I think precious metals are clearly real money. They're divisible. They are store of value. They've been used for thousands of years, but they are not easily exchangeable. So I can't go down to the store and cut a little fraction of my silver coin off and buy a steak. It's just not, like, easy to do. And if you need a really large amount of silver or gold to buy something like a whole house, like, it's just not reasonable to get like duffel bags at like thousands of ounces of silver at current prices. So that is the main drawback of precious metals, is that they are real objects, which is simultaneously their main strength. So gold and silver, precious metals are real money, not currency, is something you need to keep in mind. So whatever alternatives fulfill these requirements? Well, the second one is cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a digital form of money that uses some coding techniques, we'll call it, to keep it secure. In fact, it is far more secure than the legacy financial system, while also being a lot more transactable. Since it's digital, you can send 1 unit of currency or 10 decimals than 1 unit of currency. It doesn't matter. It also goes all over the internet, or wallet to wallet, or rather like account to account. And it's all decentralized and far more effective. So how does that work? Well, cryptocurrency works off of the blockchain, which is basically a receipt of all the transactions money takes over for that particular coin or currency or whatever. So if I send you $1, then you send $1 to someone else, that is all recorded. And it's done on millions of computers for big ones, where they have a receipt. It's very simple for each block. It goes here, it goes here, it goes here, it goes here. And anytime that end point sends money somewhere, before it actually authenticates it, it checks that whole list and it says, okay, this money actually made it here. It's legit. And in order to fool it, you have to fool over 50% of all the computers. And it's basically instant, relatively speaking, and it takes like millions of computers. You're not going to fool all of them. It's just not realistically going to happen. So I mentioned it earlier. What are these accounts? The accounts are known as a wallet. So you don't actually hold the cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency is decentralized across those millions of computers on the ledger. But what you do hold access to is the key, or like the administration password, to use those on your wallet. So if you hold coins, there's two addresses. There's a public address, which is like how people send you money. So like if someone sends you mail, you give them your address. That's what the public address is. And there's your private key, which is your administration password, how you send money. You want to give out your public address so that you can receive money, but you don't want to give out your private key because then people can just send money to themselves and steal it. So there's another ways to do this. There's two broad terms. There's a hot wallet and a cold wallet. The hot wallet means your public key is out there on the internet and your private key is held online. So it's not open for everyone, but it's on a server of like a exchange, so like Coinbase or ByteDance, or it's on your computer. This is considered to be far more vulnerable because then you have infinite hackers which could theoretically break onto your computer, and if they know what they're doing, take that key, which is again basically just digits, and then access your crypto and transfer it to themselves. The other and far more secure way, and basically the best way, is something called a cold wallet. A cold wallet is off the internet. So they have like little devices that generate and hold the key on USB sticks, basically, with like passwords that open them up that you can remember easily. So like the name of your dog and the name of your house and like 10 of those to open it. Or you can use a paper wallet, which is basically just a piece of paper where you write down the public key and the private key. That's all. And anytime you need to access it, there's ways to turn them on to be a hotkey temporarily without saving it anywhere. Transfer money or receive money. Well, you can receive money regardless. It doesn't have to be online, but you have to put in the administration key to actually spend the money, transfer it somewhere else. So that is a paper wallet. So you can print it out and hide it in a safe. But I'd actually recommend just memorizing that if that's your main way. So you usually want to have your main money stored offline because it's far more secure. And then like a little small portion online. And you're not going to get hacked often. On average, it's not that likely unless you make yourself a target or people know. But you don't want to have a lot online. So maybe you have enough for like a week of money if you're buying things at the store once the cryptocurrency is more widely accepted or whatnot, or paying employees or whatever. And then if that gets lost, it sucks, but at least you have your whole life savings is offline. And then what you can do is you could just transfer money from your cold wallet to your hot wallet every like month or something. So it reduces your risk greatly. And so as I said, memorize that cold wallet because then it can't be stolen, basically. The only one who knows it is you. So if you really know it, and maybe if you have a backup on a piece of paper that you bury outside somewhere if you really forget, that's a good strategy. So ultimately, cryptocurrency is a decentralized means to transact between people that is computationally backed up by millions of miners, computers that keep track of everything. And it is a cryptocurrency because it is so effectively transactable. And while the quantities are limited or very easily limited, if we place our belief in it like we place fiat, it's a far more stable and effective means of exchange. However, it is not without drawbacks. So cryptocurrency is very energy intensive. You need millions of computers double checking all of each transaction, and even if it only uses a fraction of a watt for each computer, times it by 10,000 or 100,000, you start to get, Bitcoin using 1% of the world's energy or something along those lines. The way that's been paid for is, at least like with real popular cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they're $50,000, $60,000 a coin, and if a miner does enough transactions, they have a chance to unlock a block. Usually they pool a bunch of miners together because one block might take like a normal computer 1,000 years to do. So if you get a few thousand computers to do it, you can do it in a few hours or a few days or whatever. One block gives you I think it's 2.1 Bitcoin or something now. So it really pays for itself. And if you aggregate that, so you do collectives of tens of thousands of computers or your big data center doing it, you can somewhat reliably make that money and then sell the currency to pay for the electricity. And then they do it in like energy cheap areas and whatnot. But that's one of the big drawbacks is cryptocurrency uses a lot of electricity and computational resources. There's a way to improve it, which I'll talk about in my next video. Another downside of cryptocurrency is the technology is extremely suspect, in my opinion. So while the underlying technology is sound, and the main ones are sound, there's a number of fake coins. So if you've seen Jake Paul's like CryptoZoo or Dinkdoink or whatever it is, or all these scammers, like you can go create a cryptocurrency off of whatever weak, inefficient software And I don't even know how they frankly work. List it on an exchange for a few dozen dollars. It's like, how does that work? And then make a new coin, and then it goes doot doot, and it's worthless. 99.9999999% of the cryptocurrencies are just fake fads. Don't buy them. And especially don't buy Tether or XRP. They're bank cryptocurrencies. To manipulate you further, don't buy those. And my last and biggest gripe with cryptocurrencies is they're not very reliable. While the technology is reliable, what happens if there's the sun goes micronova in the next 20 years, which it's going to go, and all of the internet is wiped out? Okay, well, it's useless. There's no power grid, there's no internet, there's no cryptocurrency. All of your money is gone. And it doesn't even need to be a planet-wide thing. It could just be, oh, your street is out and there's no internet, or you go down to the store and you can't buy it. You can't buy anything. What are you gonna do? So cryptocurrency is not real money. It's definitely real money. It's based on an object, and I think it'll be what ultimately replaces precious metals long term. But it can't be cryptocurrency alone. It is not real enough to withstand the chaos of the world. I can hold my silver coin to my chest, micronova, nuclear war, apocalypse, and that silver coin is still an ounce of silver. My crypto keys are worthless if there's no power grid. So that's my main gripe. What else did I have here? I think I have one more thing. Oh yeah, one more thing. Cryptocurrencies are not ready technologically wise. That computation checking network of millions of computers has a limit where they can't check that many transactions per second. In fact, Bitcoin can only check 7 transactions per second. For context, credit cards do 22,950 transactions per second. Bitcoin can only do 7. So if everyone switched to Bitcoin, just on like credit cards, so buying stuff online or in stores, it wouldn't work. Not to mention each of those transactions takes like an hour to authenticate. Would you want to go to the store, you buy something, and you're just like waiting at the cash register for an hour to double check? That's not going to work. Some are better, so Ethereum is far better than Bitcoin in that regard. Where'd I put it? Ethereum only can do 20 to 30 transactions per second, which is nothing. And it takes about 1 to 5 minutes. But most cryptos take over an hour to transact, and they're not very effective. I have a solution, in my opinion, to this, which I'll do in the next video. But if you want to have high-frequency traders doing stuff every few milliseconds, or 22,000 credit card transactions a second, cryptocurrencies in their current form are not going to meet that demand. There's not enough bandwidth. Not to mention that the energy needs exponentially grow the more transactions there are, which I also have a solution to. And we'll reach a certain point where it's just too expensive energy-wise. So there's a few structural issues with cryptocurrency that need to be solved. But ultimately, what I'd like to end this video off with is precious metals are real money. They're physical, they're real, and no one's denying for 5,000 years that they are the main money. But cryptocurrencies provide an excellent opportunity to be real money and a currency. But I think the real power will come when we combine both, where you have a cryptocurrency that acts as like the central exchange and backed essentially by precious metals, where there might be distribution centers or exchange centers where you could say, I have this, I'm exchanging it for gold and silver or whatnot. When that happens, then you effectively get a cryptocurrency that is backed by real money while also being real money, that is super secure, transactable, decentralized. The banks can't control it. There's no value fluctuations or whatnot. That is the ultimate power between cryptocurrencies and precious metals. Well, so ending this video, this is the main part for the next video. My solutions to these structural issues, and some design guidelines and outlines for humanity's progress in this space.